Welcome into this weekend's Soccer Best Bets show, where I'll break down some soccer predictions from some of the top leagues around Europe. Now this week, just how it shakes out, I'm going to focus mostly just on the EPL and the Bundesliga, with a brief cameo appearance from the Turkish Super Lig. And these games will be going down on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So let's get into it. Remember to give this video a like if you find the stats helpful, and be sure to subscribe or share your picks in the comments as well. Parlay number one for me this week, it's going to be starting on Friday. We've got 3 games here spread over Friday and Saturday in Germany, starting with Bochum and Hoffenheim, the one game in the Bundesliga. It was 3-1 Hoffenheim earlier this season, and the other recent scores between these teams have been 5-2, 3-2, 2-1, and 2-0, with Bochum winning 3 of those 5 games, and both of those wins did come at home, and that's where this game will be played, at Bochum being the home team. Hoffenheim is both the team with the most both teams to score games this season, with 87% of their games hitting that bet, and the team with the least amount of clean sheets. Just 3% of their games have kept a clean sheet. Hoffenheim hasn't kept a clean sheet since September 23rd, 25 games. But they have started filling the net with a 4-3 win over Gladbach last week, 3-1 win over Augsburg 2 games back as well. Now between that, they did lose 4-1, so that now makes both teams score an over 2.5. Those bets have now gone 7-1, and if you were simply betting over 3.5, the over is gone 8-0 in those games as well. Now both of those wins for Hoffenheim were at home. They'll now be on the road, where they have just 1 win in 11 across all competitions, but they have scored in each of their past 6 road games as well. Bochum lost again last week, 1-0 to Wolfsburg. They're now winless in 8. Betting Bochum to score, though, at home is usually a pretty safe bet. They've done it in 21 straight home Bundesliga games dating back into last season, but they could be without leading scorer Takuma Asano, who suffered a thigh injury last week, so that will be worth monitoring. Still, this looks like a game that could be filled with goals in the lone Friday game. Let's kick this parlay off with both teams to score, and then we'll go to Turkey. Galatasary, a team that just keeps winning as they look to win the Turkish title. They'll be on the road playing Adana Demirspor with a 4-1 win last week, and Fenerbahce drawing. Galatasaray is 4 points clear atop the table in Turkey, and they will look to keep that distance when they travel to place 11th place Adana Demirspor. Galatasaray is 29-3-1, so losses or even draws have been pretty rare in any of their games this season. They have won 7 straight games. They've outscored their opponents 23-6 in that time. But Adana Demirspor is in okay form themselves, coming off 2 draws, and they have just 1 loss in 6. Galatasaray beat them 3-1 and 2-0 in the most recent meetings, but the last 2 that were played at the Adana Demirspor pitch were 0-0 and a 2-0 Adana win. So it's not always gone Galatasaray's way when playing on the road here. Let's go. Clearly Galatasaray should win this game. You could go draw no bet in the parlay, or for our parlay, the double chance, the win or draw for Galatasaray. And then we will roll this over into Saturday, going to the EPL, and just asking for one more result here to round up this parlay, going to Aston Villa and Chelsea. On to Saturday, Villa is 4th in the table. They're also 4th in goals for. At home, they have a crazy run of scoring in 39 of 40 home games in all competitions, going all the way back to 2022. Villa won 3-1 last week, and they are 8-3-3 in all competitions of late. Chelsea had been undefeated in 8 games, but then they lost 1-0 to City, and they got blasted 5-0 by Arsenal last week. Villa aren't those teams, but they are still a top 4 team right now. Chelsea games have been just golden to over bettors so far in recent weeks, as their games have been averaging 3.7 goals per match this season. That's the highest. That's tied with Sheffield and Newcastle. There have been 4 more goals in 9 of their past 10 games, so forget betting just over 2.5. Betting over 3.5 has been cashing like crazy in Chelsea games. This will be the 4th meeting this season, with Aston Villa winning 1-0 at Stamford Bridge in the EPL, and the team's drawing 0-0 away there in the FA Cup as well. Chelsea winning 3-1 in the second leg of the FA Cup match back at Villa Park. All Chelsea games have been an over. That's never a bad bet. Villa should probably get this win at home, or to round up this parlay, just Villa to score. We go Villa to score, Galatasaray double chance, Bochum, Hoffenheim, both teams to score. I'll come in at -110 to wrap up that parlay. Number 2 will be 3 EPL games on Saturday, starting with Wolves and Luton Town. These are 2 struggling teams meeting here, with 12th Wolves hosting 18th Luton. Wolves lost at home 1-0 to Bournemouth, a Bournemouth team that took a red card on Wednesday, and they're now winless in 7. They've allowed multiple goals in 5 of those 7 games. They've also been shut out in their past 2 games, both of those games being at home. Luton's winless run is just 2, but they have only 1 win in 14, and they've lost 5-1 now in back-to-back games, so they've been getting just routed of late. They've conceded in all of those 14 games, but outside of a 2-0 road loss to Arsenal, they've also scored in 17 of those 18 games. The only recent meeting between these teams was in September, and it was 1-1 Luton. Luton has seen the most both teams to score games this season in the EPL, with 79% of their games hitting that bet. While Wolves are a bit lower down at 10th, but they've still seen 65% of their games go both teams to score. Luton will be the more rested team, having not played midweek and being off since Saturday, so I'm betting that they will continue their run of, even if they don't win, they usually do score, but you can never expect them to keep a clean sheet. So let's go both teams to score between Wolves and Luton. Next up, it's predictions in Fulham and Crystal Palace. These teams are side by side in the table, with Fulham being 13th, 42 points, Palace 14th, 39. Neither has much room to move. They're well of the relegation threats, but they're also way out of the European spots. It was just 0-0 earlier this season in September, but lately neither have had scores that resemble anything like that. 11 of 12 Fulham games recently have seen 2 or more goals, and in 10 of those 12, there's been 3 or more goals. Fulham has just 1 win in 5, but they've scored in 11 of 12. They'll be the fresher team, having played last Sunday versus Wednesday for Crystal Palace. For Crystal Palace, they had an impressive 2-0 win over Newcastle this week. They kept Newcastle to just 2 shots on target. Newcastle had been scoring for fun recently. It's the 3rd straight win for Palace, also winning 5-2 over West Ham and 1-0 over Liverpool. So they're in great form themselves. 11 of the last 13 Palace games have seen 2 or more goals, and they themselves have scored in 12 of 13. Certainly this could be a both teams to score game, or simply over 1.5. Next, Man U and Burnley predictions. It was another wild Manchester United game this week as they beat last place Sheffield United, and they scored 4 goals. They were down 1-0 and 2-1, and needed to go on to win that game late and win 4-2. Now, since Boxing Day, there's been 3 or more goals in 16 of 20 Manchester United games in all competitions. Plus, both teams to score bets have gone 16-4. If you combine the both teams to score and the over 2.5, that's also gone 15-5. But even if we were to just look more recently, previous to Wednesday, their scores had been 3-3, 2-2, 2-2, 4-3, 1-1, 4-3 in extra time, and they have only 2 wins in 6 games. They have just 1 loss in 8 and 3 losses in 18. So you never really know what you're going to get with Man U right now, but you do usually get to see a lot of goals coming from both sides. Burnley may be 19th, and they've allowed the 3rd most goals, but they're only 3 points away from safety. And they're fighting down that stretch, having won 4-1 away to Sheffield last weekend, and they are 2-4-1 in their last 7. That is a lot of draws, not a lot of wins, but they have scored in 6 of 7. They're not losing many games lately, and they will be the more rested team, having not played in midweek. Man U only won 1-0 this season when they last met, but previous scores recently were 2-0, 1-1, 3-1, and 3-1, so there is a history of goals between these teams generally. Man U to score at least 2 could be a great bet in a parlay. Could be both teams to score in over 2.5 or simply over 2.5. Any of those options I think would be great either on their own or to bump this parlay up higher. I will simply just very easily go over 1.5 to get us up and over, plus money. Man U Burnley over 1.5, Fulham Palace over 1.5, Wolves and Luton both teams to score plus 114. Certainly, I think if you went both teams to score, Man U and Burnley, you get that to pay a little bit more. Parlay number 3 in Germany, split over Saturday and Sunday. This could be one of the better games in Europe this weekend. It's Bayer Leverkusen and Stuttgart. This, like I said, one of the top games to look forward to. The title winners, Leverkusen, looks to keep their remarkable 45-game undefeated run going. Well, they'll be hosting 3rd place Stuttgart, who are looking to remain in the top 4 and maybe even pass Bayern for 2nd. After wrapping up the title, Leverkusen came oh so close to seeing that undefeated run snapped with needing 87th and 97th minute tying goals to tie 2 games 1-1 against West Ham in the Europa League and Dortmund last week in the Bundesliga. Stuttgart too dropped points last week as they lost surprisingly 2-1 away to Bremen, but they're still scored in 13 straight games and a total of 32 goals in that time. Leverkusen have scored in all but 1 match this season, so that looks like a given. But the title pressure is off of them now. They've still conceded now in back-to-back games. They will have Europa League semifinals coming up, and they have been leaving it late to keep this undefeated streak going. Stuttgart's been a great team all season as well. Let's bet at least a goal coming from both here. It was 1-1 Stuttgart in the Bundesliga and 3-2 Leverkusen in the Pokal. You can see both teams scoring again here. That will be 1 both teams to score bet. And the second leg will also be both teams to score. This goes over to Sunday. We need to go from 2 of the top teams in the league down to 2 not so top teams. And it's Darmstadt and Heidenheim. Heidenheim, though, they've still had a great season. They're 10th. It's more than anybody would have expected from them here. They have been fading down the stretch. They lost 2-1 to Leipzig last week. They only have 1 win in 9 and 2 wins in 14. So they're getting by on good form earlier in the season. They're good for a goal, though, usually. They've scored in 9 of 10 and 16 of 18. Both teams to score bets have gone 5-0 in their recent games, and they've conceded in 10 straight and also in 14 of 15 away Bundesliga games. Darmstadt is all but certain to go down here, but they did win last week away to Cologne 2-0. That is just their only win in their last 23 games, so it's hard to ever expect them to get too many wins. They certainly can't be trusted for another 2-0 win. They were just shut out in the 2 games prior to that Cologne win, but they have scored now 2 goals in 3 of their past 5, and one of those games was scoring twice at home to Bayern Munich. They certainly could score here against the Heidenheim team that rarely keeps clean sheets. We saw a wide open 3-2 home Heidenheim win back in December. And if we go back to the 2 Bundesliga where these teams played before being promoted, other scores between them in recent years were 1-0, 2-2, 3-2, 2-1, 5-1, 3-0. So mostly, usually goals in most of those results. Let's go both teams to score here to pair 2 BTTS bets together. That will come in at plus 158 odds for some decent odds there. Finally, EPL on Sunday, a 3-game parlay. Tottenham and Arsenal, another top game to look forward to this weekend in Europe. These teams drew 2-2 in Arsenal earlier this season, but last year at Hotspur Stadium, Arsenal won, but they won 2-0. That was the first time Tottenham failed to score versus Arsenal since 2014 when playing at home. Tottenham was also lost and was shut out last week, 4-0 away to Newcastle. Still, they have just 5 losses in their last 19 games, and being shut out is even more rare for them, as they've scored in 32 of 35 games in all competitions this season. And 2 of those 3 came on the road, and the one at home was versus City. Arsenal is just as good as City, and certainly they could shut Spurs out here again, as they're off of 5-0 and 2-0 wins, and they have kept clean sheets in 6 of 9 games across all competitions. But this is a derby. Arsenal's looking to stay atop the table. Tottenham's looking to play spoiler to their rivals, and they're at home. And I see at least a goal coming from both, possibly more. Let's go both teams to score in this parlay to start in this pick in leg 1 of this parlay. Next up, Bournemouth and Brighton. Bournemouth will come in a little more rest and confidence, having played on Wednesday, winning 1-0 away to Wolves. But they will be without Milos Kerkez, who took a red card. Now that snaps a 3-game winless run for Bournemouth, but they are 5-2-2 in their past 9, and they've scored in all 9 of those games for a total of 16 goals. The Cherries have scored multiple goals in 4 or 5 recent home games as well, which is where they'll be here. Brighton played home to City on Thursday. They were down 3-0 early, went into the half down 3-0, and went on to lose 4-0. That's the 5th game winless for Brighton. They have just 2 goals for in that time, and they've only scored 4 in their last 10 games. So the free-flowing, high-scoring ways of Brighton have cooled off as the season has worn down. The teams are side by side on the table right now. Bournemouth 10th with 45 points, Brighton 11th with 44. Bournemouth can still top their best EPL finish, so they are still playing for that. Meanwhile, Brighton won earlier this season 3-1, and they won both meetings last year 1-0 and 2-0. But this looks like a spot for Bournemouth to break that streak, and they will likely win at home. Certainly they should at least get 1 goal, which is what I'll ask for in this parlay. And then we will simply wrap this up with one more simple-looking selection with Nottingham Forest and Man City. For me, this next selection is just to round out this parlay and get it up in over even money. You don't need me to tell you, Man City are big favorites here. They kept the title race alive with that big win over Brighton that we just talked about. They could be tired, but they're also out of the Champions League, and they need to hunt down Arsenal for that title spot. They could score 2, 3, or 4 of their own goals here, once again, like they just did on Thursday. For Forest, they still need to play 2. They're just 1 point above Luton for relegation. They lost away to City this season 2-0, but last year the teams did draw 1-1 when playing at this venue. But they are a hard team to trust to win. They only have 1 win in 10 games. They've given up multiple goals in 3 straight games. They have those scored in 5 of 6. You could easily go City to win in this parlay, maybe City to win and both teams to score to get some better odds, as City have conceded in 9 of their past 13 games. So that it's not always a given that they are going to keep a clean sheet. In fact, they usually don't. But for me, like I said, to keep this parlay going, let's just go over 1.5. So Nottingham and City over 1.5. Bournemouth to score. Tottenham, Arsenal, both teams to score, coming in plus 107. We'll leave it at that for this week. There are plenty of other games and other leagues out there, so be sure to share your picks down there in the comments. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel for more soccer picks, and good luck this weekend.